Thanks very much for inviting me along. And thanks to Aaron for the primer on machine learning. I guess I would say, though, that it's a little bit like the difference between turning the light switch on when you get home versus working on the high voltage power lines. There's something of a difference in there. The people involved, Simon Denman does the machine learning bit. He's actually the brains of the organisation. Tony, Matt and Michael are with BQ and doing great work putting out camera grids. Could I get the next slide, please? Thanks. The reason I wanted to talk to you today is that we've solved a problem, and it's a hard problem, but for me it's a little bit about the philosophy of what biosecurity should be about. So we've looked at koalas, and finding koalas is difficult. Why am I talking about it in a biosecurity forum? It's hard because they live in a complex environment. People have used drones, they've used thermal imagery, and they've used machine learning before. We're doing the same thing. What's the difference? Well, mostly they're looking at birds, seals on a beach. It's, I don't want to disparage my colleagues, but it's a different order of magnitude to what we've been doing. And we have solved that problem. We're very, very accurate. We're more efficient. We can cover 50 hectares in a couple of hours, where it might take a team of 2 or 3 people a couple of days. We can process the data in a couple of hours. So we're doing really good things. The question I usually ask people, or the little game that I play, is to ask them in that's a photo from a drone, both in RGB, just ordinary photography, and with thermal, where's the koala? Does anybody have any thoughts at all? Oh, somebody thinks they know, right? In the tree, well, there is a very accurate... Yeah, can I go to the next slide, please? Thanks, it's there. Who got it right? Probably not, so... Thanks. So despite the fact that, it is just a little bit like going outside and looking and seeing whether it's raining or not, we have to do it in a very intelligent way. There aren't many... The internet exists basically for photos of cats, and there aren't many thermal images of koalas there to train machine learning algorithms. So we've had to come up with clever ways to combine algorithms so that we can use very few images and do it very effectively. So there's efficiency again. Again, still, why does it matter? I just want to show you a little video of what the machine learning algorithm looks like as it's progressing along. We're seeing areas of high probability that get thrown up by these algorithms. And if it's high enough, the algorithm will say, that's probably a koala. And we've trained that a number of times. We're lucky that we had access to a site where we had radio-collared koalas. So we knew the true positives. That was really, really important. And again, what does it matter to biosecurity? Well, what matters is when you take that workflow where we've had some luck in getting really good radio-collared koalas, a great site to work on, and some, some smart people working on it, where do you take that problem next? Where we've taken it to is looking at deer. So koalas are high profile, it gets a lot of attention. Deer aren't quite so much high profile, although I suspect people in the room might know a little bit more about it than the general public. We've just started doing this, but we have solved most of the problems. And that's the important thing. I want to talk a little about, or put the idea in your head, that we need to start translating the science better. We're not doing that at the moment. Biosecurity tends to be a bit of a closed shop, I'm afraid, and I've worked in biosecurity for the past 15 years or so. I tend to be on one side of the fence or the other, in conservation or in biosecurity. Many of the problems are the same, but we still tend to have a bit of a closed shop here. And if you really want the best, if you really want the most efficiency in biosecurity, you're going to have to start talking to a broader audience, and you're going to have to start inviting people to come and talk to you, because they don't necessarily know that the problems exist. So what next? With deer, what we're starting to do is we're just annotating that imagery, which means essentially that I get a master student to sit down in a dark room and do a lot of hard work, but they will come out with something very important at the end of it. So we are annotating the imagery so that the machine learning algorithm can work with the deer. We're collecting more and more data at the moment. They've just been up in Rockhampton. We're about to do some work out at North Pine Dam to try and look in different environments. The other important thing, of course, is how we integrate, digitise, in effect, the environment in which these organisms live. Why do we find them in some places and not in other places? Is it because they're not there, or is it because we can't see them? And we need to be able to quantify that. Once we do this, that kind of ecological detection work is important. But finding something, as I was talking to Victoria about before, is really the first stage. What comes next is abundance estimation. What comes after that is how do you look across a landscape? 1 minute? How do you look across a landscape? Because unless you're really understanding this ecological process across the broad scale, you're not going to be able to control, eradicate whatever you want to do. I guess I'll just suggest once again that we need to look a little bit more broadly. We need to translate the lessons, and you need to look out for those lessons that you're finding in other places, and you need to bring it into biosecurity. I will just finish on one map, BioSpark, which is a model that we developed in a previous project, and you'll see many of these kinds of maps. And essentially we're solving the same problems time and time again, and we need to be a little bit aware of that as well. I'm afraid that I need to go after this, but you're very welcome to email me any questions or give me a call. Emma certainly knows how to get in touch with me. Thanks very much.